Welcome to the Growth Catalyst Show, where we believe that growth can come in many forms: professional, personal, company, sales, you name it. I'm your host, Dan Mahoney, founder of Transcendent Sales Solutions and a guide to a world of growth possibilities. I've spent my career empowering companies and their people with strategies that accelerate growth. I'm here to bring you stories of these business leaders and their trusted advisors to gain insights into their journeys and learn how they fuel their own growth. Just maybe their journey could become part of your own growth story. Are you ready? Let's grow. Welcome to the next edition of the Growth Catalyst Show. I'm your host, Dan Mahoney. I am very excited to have our next guest. Andrew Windham is a family CFO, speaker, and coach at Educated Freedom, a concierge multifamily office for faith-forward, proven-driven, legacy-committed entrepreneur founders. They provide freedom for founders by integrating every aspect of their personal and business finances through a proactive, holistic, and comprehensive wealth management. Andrew, welcome to the Growth Catalyst Show.
Awesome to be here, man.
Buddy, we've been trying to do this for a while. We finally made it happen.
It's all finally perfect timing.
It happen. Perfect timing. Timing is always good. So as I was learning, as I do research for this show, which was one of my favorite parts, I always learn something new about everybody. So Andrew is from Cullman, Alabama. Is that where Cullman? Is that where you grew up? That's where you grew up. I didn't even know where the hell Cullman, Alabama was until I went and looked it up on a map. So,
growing up, we were known most notably for being a dry county where everybody drove to the nearest county 30 minutes or whatever to buy their beer, their adult alcohol, and then hopefully not imbibe it on the way back.
So literally prohibition. A prohibition
it was,
county.
And what was really funny is it came up for vote several times growing up, and it came out that like one of the owners of like a big store was funding half the campaign because if we went wet, he was going to lose, like probably take a 30% hit to his bottom line, or in your world, sales were going to go down. So follow the money, right?
So you had to drive a long way for spirits when you were in high school.
Yeah.
Oh my God, that is hilarious. That I didn't read in your bio. So, and that explains to me why you went to Auburn. And I understood now, going to Auburn. Interesting into your background is your degree is business administration, pre-medicine, marketing, and zoology. So What were you thinking? Like, that's a mixed bag like I've never seen for an undergrad and a lot of minors. So what were you thinking?
So, it's interesting. I think I'll start in reverse. Right after I graduated and I moved to Atlanta, really the first big boy job out of college working for Venator Group, which is like Champs and Foot Locker and all of those. Another story for another day. But, people be like, well, what'd you major in? And I was like, marketing and zoology. And at the time, the Atlanta Zoo had just gotten the pandas and they were putting up the billboards, right? And I was like, oh, well, I'm marketing for the zoo. And they were like, really? No kidding. And I was like, no, I'm just kidding. But the brief story behind that is just basically, I ran in college at Auburn, and I wanted to go to med school. My dad's a general surgeon or is a retired general surgeon now. And I wanted to go into orthopedic surgery. I'd spent 2 weeks plus in 20-something different specialties of medicine, really leveraged my dad's relationships and connections, and spent a year and a half in high school through college working with an orthopedic surgeon. So I was dialed in. That's what I wanted to do, right? And we've got all kinds of politics, DI, whatever you want to call it. Don't really want to feed that monster, but back then there were some quotas and some things with an agenda to make sure there was some more equal opportunity for admission. And if you were a white male, it took a dang near perfect 4.0 and a 27 not to get in on the MCAT, but to get an interview. So my dad went to UAB. I got that complimentary interview coming out of that, highly competitive. I was irritated because I saw folks who hadn't put in the time and the work that were getting admissions and not me, which is what led me in another way from medicine, which now I don't regret. But zoology was the only major that I could take and meet those pre-med requirements to get into med school and not have to like do chemistry or physics or math or do some research project for the professor. So, we went out to the stream and we did some ecology and snail research and all those exciting things. And through the work in and experiences in medicine, I found a lot of healthcare professionals are great at what they do, but they suck at running a business. And so I wanted to make sure I shored up some business skills. And so I was going to get a minor, and it turned into a major because I had been misadvised. And so I ended up with a double major in marketing and zoology. So more than you wanted to know, but we're a product of our experiences.
Well, and it pivots very well as I'm going to jump right to, you talked about that college admission and how hard it was. You actually took that and turned that into what I think is your first business venture, which is the College Planning Institute, correct?
Well, so my first business venture was actually Insurance Georgia. But yes, what I would call my first real business venture was College Planning Institute, because in the insurance world, I knew what I didn't want to do, which was like have to manage all the payroll and all that. So I negotiated and built that organization so somebody else was doing all that work, right? When I started building College Planning Institute, I was like, whoa, this is a whole nother animal. Like, I really have to do all the marketing, all the HR, like all the everything, right? That so many business owners and entrepreneurs find out, like, ooh, I bit off a little bit larger piece of the elephant than I have the capability or skills to chew, right?
So with Educated Freedom, you ran that business for 14 years, and I can't imagine how many lives you've helped change, now probably some of the leaders in this country, and helping them with those college choices.
Well, so the way that I actually got into the college planning world, more or less, Dan, was the Affordable Care Act got passed, and my cheese didn't get moved; it evaporated overnight, right? And so in my mid late 20s, I was making a solid deep six figures, and in my words, living the American dream. Cindy Fowler, one of your previous guests, I was in a small group with her and her husband. And I remember thinking, man, these poor guys at 40 something, they're just now figuring it out. I'm so lucky at, 24, 25. I've got the cat by the tail, man, the Lord has just laughed at me over the last 30 years, at that. But, I wanted to do something where I felt like I could make a difference. And so it was, it was going the opposite way from trying to teach an old dog new tricks and making an impact at the level with kids that were more coachable, teachable, and helping them avoid some mistakes, if you will. And so that's kind of where the idea and the concept showed up, of just creating competitive leverage for a kid in the college process, and really just flipping on its head, not who do I have to be to get into UGA, for example, but is, if I'm going to do engineering, is UGA, even though they have engineering as a major, does that make sense, right? We wouldn't go shop for groceries at Home Depot. And so, yeah, that was a ton of fun for 14 years. And COVID ended up kind of being a pivot point to something different. But prior to that, I've saved millions of dollars. And college is and continues to be, especially with the rate of cost growth, it's the largest cash flow event in a student and a family's life per kid, that can be a 7-figure wealth transfer if not done well and done right. So crazy impact, both negative and positive, generationally sometimes, based off how we handle that I think people don't know or appreciate.
I really want to dig into Educated Freedom, but before I do that, I really want to understand from you, as a successful entrepreneur, has done multiple business. What are some things you learned along the way as a business owner?
So, I'm going to go right back to COVID. I think COVID, for some people, I had a mentor that said COVID was God's way of sending us to our room for a timeout. And some folks thought and learned, and some folks did alcohol or whatever else and avoided the pain and suffering. It was the pivot point from college planning to educated freedom. But during that time, my podcast came out, Educated Freedom, Culture, Career, Cash Flow. And in the prep for the intro and all those things, I actually discovered my why, which is to help people live their highest purpose all day, every day, in every role that they play. And that has evolved. What his Educated Freedom in the family office is really precipitated, Dan, is really my own personal development journey and growth and maturing, which there's a lot more of that to go, time willing from the Lord. But like, I grew up watching my dad, for instance, who was a successful surgeon and business owner, but I saw all kinds of stress and headache and time loss because of the way he did it, like trying to be the captain of all the things that he was doing, at the expense of him not being around growing up a lot. Mm-hmm. And so I wanted to do that different, right? I saw college planning and a problem I was going to have to face as a parent. So how could I learn that? And then I just turned it into a business for a couple years. And so I think the entrepreneurial journey is about discovery. And what I've really learned, social media and podcasts are so helpful for, Dan, as you know, is it's a way just to show up, not like a artificial way to like show up and be something. It's like, hey, just show up authentically. And this is what I'm learning. What are you learning? And you actually build authentic community through those types of dialogues, questions, and posts, right?
Amen. Amen. And, and I love doing the show, and I don't talk anything about my profession. I learn. This is a learning thing for me. And I hear what you're saying. Let's talk about family office, because I know there's a lot of folks that don't know what a family office is. I know it's one, and I knew about it with, the billionaires of the world have their family investment offices. And so explain to me and explain to our listeners what a family office is.
Well, so first of all, in its simplest form, a family office is actually a second business that a ultra high net worth family would have. Think sports organization owners like an Arthur Blank of the Falcons, et cetera. They literally have a full functioning business that represents and integrates all personal and business wealth items. That could be real estate, tax services, lifestyle management, as simple as paying the bills, investment management, integrating all those things, and basically just having a true, pure fiduciary focus, meaning what's in that family's best interest. And if the people in that business serving the financial goals and interest of that person, if they're not doing what they're supposed to do, they're gone, right? Mm-hmm. But it takes $400 million minimum assets by and large for most folks to make that a break even or profitable scenario. And there's a huge proportion of the population, specifically entrepreneurs, 5 to 150, 200 million, that are bottlenecked because as they grow their wealth, they get wealth in financial decisions in multiple lanes, and they don't know what they don't know. They have blind spots. And as we say, the more money that you have, the more attractive you are to people, pitches, and projects that look and feel good. Shiny object syndrome, right?
So if you look at, and that's a great explanation. So, thinking as a business owner, and again, I'm not at that 5 million to 150 million yet, but how does a business owner come to realization like, I could use something like, because I'm sure they're not going out and Googling family office services, right? So how did they come to the realization like, I need this, or I might be some benefit of this?
Let's take a moment for a quick word from our sponsor.
This episode of the Growth Catalyst Show was brought to you by Transcendent Sales Solutions. Whether your company is facing uncertainty, declining sales, or resource limitations, Transcendent Sales has the solution. Their team has decades of experience helping businesses find alignment to meet their growth goals and transforming underperforming sales organizations into revenue-producing market leaders. They take a hands-on, results-oriented approach to solving sales challenges. Visit transcendentsales.com to learn more and subscribe to the bi-weekly Growth Catalyst newsletter for insightful growth strategies. Transcendent Sales Solutions, empowering businesses to reach new heights. And now, back to the show.
So first of all, I want to clarify, we've established that we want to work with founders only at 5 million in revenue and up. But where it makes sense can really depend on the individual, their mindset, and those types of things. So if you had somebody in the retail business, as you know, Dan, and they're doing 5 million in revenue, they might be lucky for a 10% profit margin, $500,000 if they're lucky once everything, settles out. Whereas somebody in professional services or consulting, $1 million might have a higher profit margin, be 750, right?
Better.
So, yeah. So, but anyhow, it's really a function of a couple of things. It's a who, not how, which is kind of the popular verbiage. And, another popular theme right now is 10Xing. Don't 2X, 10X, right? And what I would say is, if you want a 10X, then you're not going to solve your existing challenges and problems the way you've thought about them before. You actually need paradigm shifts and to look and manage things differently, right? And so the whole function of who, not how, and I think what happens by time constraint for business owners as you grow is a lot of times we grow a business around our ego and where we're the center of everything. But then we realize, wait, like I'm missing out on the whole reason I built a business, which was to have freedom to do what I want, when I want, with who I want, how I want, right? And so then you go, okay, so this isn't working to get what I wanted. I'm going to have to add a team, which means we have to grow skills, right? But then you realize, like, every time you grow the business, you think, well, the problems will go away. The problems don't go away. They get bigger. And what I would say is you have to choose which ones you have the time, the skills, and the interest to solve. Most business owners, entrepreneurs, they're exceptional at creating wealth, but they're even more talented and capable of giving it away because they have what we call transferred or unearned confidence. I saw this with my dad. Great surgeon. Your life's on the line. You want that guy operating on you. You're doing something outside of what he does every day and gets reps. Maybe not so much. But that confidence he had in the operating room, he would transfer and get himself in a little bit of trouble from time to time, unknowingly and unnecessarily.
So if it's, I'm going to put myself in that founder's shoes, and I'm working with you, what are some things that you're going to be able to help me with and drill down? And so just understand what that means.
Yeah. So like the traditional family office, but in a more efficient manner using technology, flexibility, scalability, high net worth or even successful founders, studies show that they don't need or want or have the time to travel or meet with their advisors in person. And COVID forced people to embrace technology, just like we can record podcasts via Zoom and all those things versus having to physically be there, right? So the first thing is they know that they want A+ subject matter experts, right? Number two, they want to have a relationship, but really they don't want the relationship around the numbers. They want it to be personal, just like because we do business with people that we know, like, and trust. That requires depth and breadth of relationship, usually over time or through experiences, right? And so when everything doesn't have to be locale, you can use the best subject matter expert anywhere in the continental US, for example, and that raises the game. So business owners often their number one expense is taxes. I've never met anybody said, "Oh yeah, I love giving $1 million to the government," right? And so that might be the pain or the significant financial issue that they're experiencing, but because what they really want is they really just want to reduce the tax bill,
Mhm.
right? So I had a dentist, like, he'd been to a seminar and he just wanted to buy 100 houses a year if that's what it took to drive his tax bill to zero. Okay. But he's not thinking about, like, what do you know about real estate? Who's managing the houses? When you sell them, what happens to the taxes? Like, all of those things. He was focused on the hole that he wanted from the drill, not the management and what it took to run the drill, right? So we hire, coordinate, and synergize all of those subject matter experts so that the business owner spends 20 hours or less a year simply making decisions. And then we manage all of the execution transparently and holistically on their behalf. So, an example is we gave a business owner who was hoping not to be in their business 40 hours day to day by 67, and in 2.5 years, $3.2 million of tax savings, and the realization that he could exit his business 10 years quicker. So we gave him a decade of freedom back in his life. And he gets to get to that, what we would call second half or last best chapter of his life, which is living and enjoying the discretion of time, which is the greatest, I think, display of or example of wealth, right?
Interesting. So, again, you gave that example definitely with taxes, but then hey, I'm a business owner. I'm thinking all the things I need to do right now. I need to get better. I need to renegotiate insurance. I need to
Mhm.
refinance a couple things on the personal end. I'd love to look for commercial property, that type of thing. So you can help coordinate all that stuff on the personal and professional side.
Correct. So we take complex financial decisions and we make them simple by making
Mm.
sure that the business owner is very clear on what it is they want the end result to be. And then they likely don't understand the complexity that goes into that. So, two quick examples: buying a car seems simple enough. It,
Mm.
on average, low end is a 6-hour process if everything's perfect when you get there. It could take as long as 6 weeks plus. What are the elements of that? It's know what you want, source the car, negotiate the cost, financing, which could be self financing with cash or financing with somebody else's money. What's the best outcome? There's insurance, there's titling, all of those things. So, really, 5 components and 3 to 4 professionals that have some impact on finance. And we don't think of it like that because we do it 1 or 2 times every 4 to 5 years. We do that for a business owner so that they have 15 to 20 minutes total, and it's delivered concierge to their drive. And is one testimonial of our client is, I got to go drink beer and play golf with my friends while he did all the hard work, right? And so they loved it. But to your example, financing like real estate. So we're working with a dentist right now out of Nashville that almost made a bad decision on a $4.8 million loan. And he spent 4 months almost making a mistake that would haunt him for at least 7 years because of a 7-year prepayment penalty. Conversely, with a client that we've been working with for a year, we bought, financed, and closed on a commercial office space with 3 partners in 3 weeks. What's the difference? Having the knowledge and knowing who you need, what you need to show up. So when we hit the go button, everything is just execution and managing the process. And that's what we do on behalf of business owners in every significant or meaningful financial decision, opportunity, or moment of stress.
You just gave a bunch of examples of the financial impacts of working with you, but I can only imagine just the impacts in general on their lives as far as balance. Because as entrepreneur, and you and I have talked about how struggle it is sometimes is finding that balance. Talk about some of the successes on that end, because I'm sure they're vast and endless.
Honestly, the greatest emotional paycheck for me is seeing business owners who have sacrificed for years. They finally get over the hump, but they're kind of stuck and frustrated with a bottleneck. We find this all the time with business owners who hire fractional C-level execs to kind of work through a deal. But then their thought is like with a fractional CMO, I'll hire them to do that. They pay them $30,000, $50,000 a year. But what the fractional CMO says is, you don't have an integrated plan for marketing, brand management, all those. So I'm going to need another 60 to do that. And so now the business owner, as you could imagine, Dan's like, well, wait a second. That dream cruise over to Tahiti and Bora Bora, now I'm not going to be able to do that or I'm going to have to sacrifice that or delay it because I need the money or a portion of it to do this thing that I hired the fractional CMO. Right. And so when we're working with a business owner, one, we give them time, but two, we see opportunities that they don't even know are there. And so in doing that, we free up the cash flow and they get to do more of all of that. They blow through a bottleneck and then their business grows, yet again. That means more tax liability, which is a full net problem, but then we have solutions for that. But all that to say, the cool part is watching the business owner have breakthroughs personally and professionally that then allow them to really get to the whole reason they started in the first place, to make impact and to do awesome things for people that they know, they love, and that they care about.
So couple founders out here listening, what are a couple things they should be thinking about now as far as moving towards something to give them more freedom?
So very often, I use the analogy of two extremes. You got the do-it-yourselfers. Home Depot made that kind of popular. You can do it. We can help, right? But can you do it yourself? The answer is yes. Like the dentist trying to refinance his deal, right? But when we got involved and hit the stop button, his cash flow is going to be $19,000 better with our help because we do it better and more times and more efficiently. And he'll have 1/10 of the time, if even that, involved in the whole process. So, often what happens is we get bad results like hiring people because we didn't do the work and we don't know what we don't know. We can be that most trusted advisor for a founder that every time you have a significant decision or financial decision, we can make sure we're looking at all the options and we're holding transparency and conflicts of interest right out in front. So it's a fully formed, holistic, decision. So you got tons of things you want to do and you need to do, whether it's financially or otherwise, but you have a limitation of time. Most folks don't understand how much time and emotional distraction they're using around financial things, trying to figure out how to pay for a kid to go to college or which college to go to, buy a car, sell a house. I'd love to get my second home, but in their mind, they think they have to have cash for whatever reason. And they've got the cash on hand to control that experience and do it sooner than later. So they create the experiences when their kids are in the house versus when their kids go to college and are wanting to do and be their own life. It's just about time freedom is the biggest thing we get back over and over and over again. And the number one thing we hear is like, this sounds awesome, but I'm not sure I can afford it or I'll get the return on investment. And here's what I'll tell you. I'm usually shocked if within the first year, they're not getting a 15 to 20x return in terms of value, both from time and money from what they're doing. Right.
Well, and the time is the thing we never have enough of and we could never get back.
Yep.
Andrew, this has been a great conversation with you. Last question. If someone's interested to learn more about Educated Freedom, what's the best way to get in touch with you and learn more?
So, two answers to that. Number one, we've got an assessment that we've just set that maybe they don't want to work with us, but they want to just do a quick mental check of areas they may be missing or they want to improve. And they may have somebody that does similar to what we do. That's awesome. We just want them to get better. We have an assessment they can do. They can just DM me on Educated Freedom. or send me an email, andrew@educatedfreedom.com, and we'll send that over. Or I've got a link in my podcast show notes that has that in there. So love to do that. If you're interested or you have a significant financial issue or you just want to set up a consultation, just reach out or call the office at 678-500-8500. We'll set up, 15, 20 minutes, chat and see where you're at, see if it makes sense to have a further conversation. If not, you'll have some ideas that'll help you move things forward. And like you do the podcast, we just love getting to hear founders' stories. We just think that's magical.
Absolutely. Well, and your story was magical in hearing how you started. Congratulations on your success and what you do. And thank you for taking some time to come on the Growth Catalyst Show today. And that's a wrap for today's episode of the Growth Catalyst Show. Remember, you can take these stories of growth and make them part of your own journey. Learn from them, draw inspiration, and let them guide your path of growth. I'm your host, Dan Mahoney, and I look forward to our next journey together. If you've enjoyed the show, please subscribe and leave a review. Until next time, keep growing.